Today, we'll show you the 6 key things to consider when budgeting so you can run a profitable practice without carrying a significant amount of debt. Private practice owners, are you ready to rewrite the rules for your practice so you can have more time off, a great team, and more income while delivering better patient care? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to The Provider's Edge TV. I'm your host, Sabrina Runbeck. I'm a provider, an international peak performance keynote speaker, and a best-selling author. My guests and I help providers like you to control your practice, control your life, and control your future. This is your defining moment to be a disruptor in healthcare. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Powerful and Passionate Healthcare Professionals Podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Runbeck. And today we have another amazing guest with us. And what are we talking about? Money, money, money. We all work for a living. We all use the money to exchange things that we want out of life, whether it's material or experiences, and to really support those that we love. However, even after all the struggle of making money, how are we really feeling secure and free? It's based on budgeting and using a really reflecting on where those money are coming and going, especially for people in private practices where you have so much more than just your family. You have your staff, you have your practice growing. So it's important to know where everything needs to be and do you have enough for cash flow. So Dan is the owner of financial coach, MoneyWorks Financial Coaching. And he has dedicated his life, his work to see individuals, business owners, and nonprofit to find safe harbor with them finances through financial clarity, organization, and consistency. And he earned his bachelor degree in financial economics from the Moravian College and master divinity degree in pastoral ministry from Westminster Theology Seminary. And Dan loves helping individuals and organizations to build a framework to making financial decisions so they put the money where the heart is and consistently step toward their goals. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan.
Thank you for having me, Sabrina. It's a pleasure to be with you.
For everyone who's listening, they must be asking, right? Money, finances. How did you decide that even back in your undergrad days that you wanted to concentrate on this topic and then your master degree is in something different? Do you think they're connected? How did you formulate your career?
Right. Well, I see that money and ministry as being really vitally connected to one another. And I kind of start talking about money. We always think about dollars and cents and the green stuff and the stuff that we see on our apps on our phone. And we get a really, warm, fuzzy feeling when we see a high balance. And then we get this all depressed feeling when we see a low one. And really, that's not what money is about at all. Money is an expression of value. So, the currency or, dollars and cents or the euro or whatever it is that we're using for currency, that's really just a standardized way for us as a society to be able to express value. We go to the grocery store and we buy a bottle of ketchup, and if it's too expensive, we're not going to buy it. We'll do something else. But if it's, less expensive than we thought it was, we think we got a deal, right? It really has nothing to do with dollars and cents as such. It's what we value. And so it's how we assign value to things. And so that's really how I see the connection point between my ministry training and with my money training, my economic training as well. It's all about what we value.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. Anything in life. I was just on a radio show yesterday with a politician, really like who we support, what we want to do with our life. Everything is based on value system. And if we're very clear on what that value is and mean to us. And then, of course, life makes much easier decision. And especially from what even I talked about on how do we create time, how do we be more efficient and productive? And that will help us to really think about, do I want to focus on money, making more? But it's actually about what your value system aligned with exchange. Right. And I also believe money is really just the exchange of energy, because based on the example you gave on ketchup, well, your exchange for the ketchup to give you a better taste bud, right? Like to have that grill day, put on the burger and enjoy it for yourself and the people who are with you, because that's the experience of exchanging that joy and then happiness. And then that is the same thing as value, because in that moment, the value could be just the activity of being with people, right? And then the value could be, I appreciate good food. So and then the value could be whatever that moment of exchange is. But if we know it, then it doesn't matter if that ketchup is $2 or organic $5. Well, if you choose to live a healthier way and you want to have organic, you will spend that $5.
Right. Yep, exactly. And the way that we make decisions with our money should be infused with our values. We should be consciously thinking about the things that matter to us as we deploy our money in various ways, whether it being, buy the $5 organic ketchup versus the $2 non-organic or whatever it might be, right? And people have different values, and that's okay, right? But we need to consistently act out what we value with our money so that we're not mismatching or misaligning, like you said, with what's in our hearts versus what we actually do. And that's what most people do. Most people don't act consistently with their money. They might do one thing one day, one thing the next, and then they wonder why they feel all stressed out about it.
Yes. Is that I don't even know where I'm going, right?
Right.
Like, so for me, I feel like when people, well, there's also been proven by research, when we get overwhelmed, it's not so much that it's so much. Yeah, well, there's too much to do, not enough time, not because we don't know what to do, is we consistently saying yes to the things that are not aligning in what we need to go for what you truly wanted. So it's about losing the aim in life, in business, in whichever that subspecialty of area, right? Even missing aim in your own personal mission. So if you don't even know what it means to be you, what you can provide to the world, then of course your practice, your job, your individual, you might choose to explore everything and just trying to figure out. But it's not intentional. So then we end up taking all these turns and spending money on maybe yet another program, yet another certification, thinking that will get us somewhere.
Right.
But it's not, because even you got that certification, you got those new employees in your practice, it's still, you don't know what to do with those.
Right, exactly. Yeah, money is simply a tool, right, to help us accomplish the goals that we have. So, if we have, say, a practice, and two different practices may look completely different, and that's fine, right? They should also reflect the values of the owners or the particular owner. But when we think of, say, getting certifications, because that's important in my business as well, right, in the financial industry, and all of that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to, say, grow your business simply because you have another certification. So we have to take a step back and think about, well, what are the different things that I can do, maybe that don't cost a lot of money, that can grow my business to the point where, okay, then I can go get that certification. Instead, we might spend thousands of dollars that isn't really going to help us immediately and might sink our business if we don't do it properly, right? So we have to think of both the short-term and the long-term goals, right? And use our money strategically so that we can accomplish, yes, the short term, but then also make sure those short-term goals are inching us towards the long-term ones as well. What you had mentioned before, it's when we make the best decisions when we're looking in the long term, but we're kind of acting in the short term. So we're taking those incremental steps towards the goals.
Right, exactly. Just like when we talk about atomic habits, and many researchers in that domain of we have to compound our to-dos of now that will small steps easier steps, yet challenging and exciting. Because
Right.
some of the research I think I'm missing out is that if we consistently taking the comfortable steps, then you actually don't see where you could be to inch yourself, to challenge yourself to get to the next place. Because if the road is so comfortable, then you stay on it, right? But it's never going to give you that growth. Yet when we take risks, those calculated risks, not to feel like you have to eat an elephant in one day, but to break it down in, okay, now I have that aim, and it's not so big, so hypothetical that you feel like you're never going to get it, because we're always going to have some type of fear in, do I have enough money for security? How do I expense certain things in life? But if we can't even take on that challenge at all, then of course we're also holding ourselves back. So it's definitely is an internal battle, but we also needed to remove that persona of I'll never get there, or I'll wait for the better time, right? Like the if then mentality that a lot of us have. Oh, well, if only I have that new office, if only I have that new staff member, if only I have more certificate, then people will see me as such and such, right? Our identity shouldn't be attached to the physical world. It should be really seen as, when we come back to the value system, do I really be very clear on what the value I'm holding and how I wanted to project for other people to see me in those values, instead of all the ancillary things that are not truly connected to who I am as my identity.
Right, right. And that's so crucial, is living out our identity with our money and with our other resources, such as time. Money and time are very similar. You can always kind of make more money, but you can never get more time, right?
Right.
But, I was thinking of some of the issues that you had mentioned, of being overwhelming. And especially in the healthcare industry, the clients that I've worked with, a lot of it is debt, right? Is student debt. And so, we look at, maybe a 6-figure loan balance or loan balances, and we get all intimidated, and we think that we can never make any progress with it, right? But if we can break it down into component pieces and then attack each piece individually, we can actually start to make progress on those kinds of things. And so it is far less overwhelming to do it that way, rather than see, wow, I owe, $100,000, $200,000 in student loans. Sure, I make a decent salary. Maybe I make 6 figures, but with the cost of living and everything, it doesn't seem like it goes as far as I thought it would when I was in school. And, now I come out and I see, well, I can do it, but I have to be more careful than I thought I was going to. And so we might do it one month and not do it the next month. But as you mentioned, budgeting, the key to budgeting is doing it consistently and doing the same thing every month, taking those small steps towards the goal. So, it's maybe you do have $150,000 of student loan debt. Most likely you can pay that off. If you have a decent job and you're consistent with it and everything, you can pay that off in probably less time than you think. But you can't pay it off maybe in a single year. It might take you a couple, 3 years to do it, but you can do it. And then after that, you can pursue your goals with more eagerness and, even more excitement, because you don't have, say, your debt that is draining you down and dragging you down over time.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Is many people have the fear of just being in debt, as you're saying. So how can we think that, oh, I already came out with hundreds of thousands of debt, and at the same time, I wanted to own something on myself, right? Have a practice, but then you have to hire, and then you have to think about how much you're paying someone per hour, and then that's part of your growth. So some people might have the fear of, oh my goodness, I couldn't even borrow even more just to hire. What if I don't create enough revenue? So then it really holds people back, right? And then I believe being in debt not necessarily is a bad thing if you have the cash flow to continue to grow. And it's not necessarily everyone needs to be zero free debt. I was lucky both from the help of family and my own scholarships and whatnot, from undergrad to 2 masters. I only accumulated 150 grand of debt, and I paid it off in 2.5 years because I budgeted in a way. And also, again, I wasn't really paying rent for those 2 years because I just put everything toward my principal and toward my interest rate. But not everyone is able to do that. But if you can somehow just incrementally, then that's fine. And then for many people who has been out for many years, maybe you still have trickling debt, whether it's a house or a business loan, right? Like small business with COVID, you can take out more loans. It's not necessarily bad thing, but it's to keep you at float. So Dan, do you have any suggestions when it comes to what are some things we should really pay attention to when we're budgeting, and then make sure we have a cash flow?
Yeah, there's a number of things, especially, surrounding debt. And I find a lot of times what people struggle with is not, say, the 2 or 3 major debt payment methods, right? There's only a few different ways to really do it. There's maybe flavors of each of those, but, there's only really a few. But the issue a lot of times is the way that we think about it. So we do get overwhelmed, or we don't take any action. We know that we should do such and such and such, or we read an article on Bankrate or Mint.com or whatever it might be, right? And we think this is the way that we need to do it because so-and-so expert with a PhD said so. Well, that's not necessarily the case. The problem with debt tends to be risk. And it's the risk of, well, what if I can't pay this back? Is the bank going to foreclose on my home? Or, if I declare bankruptcy, my student loans are still there, right? All of those kinds of things. So it takes a moment. We have to step back and think about, okay, what is the purpose of this debt? What purpose is it serving as I'm going towards my goals? How can I best now, as I've taken out these loans to get this degree, get this training education, how can I use that education to pay these loans back, right? Make sure that we're kind of getting a return on our quote unquote, our investment, right? It's not strictly speaking an investment, but we are spending money and hopefully getting a return from that, right? So, but when we talk about budgeting, one of the key things is prioritization, like what we're talking about before with the value system. How do we actually live out our values on a practical basis using either even just a pad and a pen, right? Just listing out what's most important to us. Is it rent and debt payments and all of these kinds of things? Or maybe I can live with roommates or with a family member or something and get creative like that so that I can assign more of my money to the things that are most important to me. Say somebody does want to be completely debt free. Okay, great. Say they don't. Okay, well, we'll incorporate that into the way that they budget. So it's personalized to each person in each individual situation, because you can read an article and so recommends budgeting this way. Well, sure, there are principles that we apply, but it depends on the particular sets of circumstances for each person and the way that they want to live out their values. I might have 5 different clients and they might quote unquote budget the same way operationally, but those 5 budgets are completely different because they have 5 different value sets standing behind them, 5 different sets of personal circumstances standing behind them, and all of those kinds of things. We might have a business owner or somebody who wants to start a business. And so they want to, say, get rid of their debt quickly so that they can maybe feel more secure or take on, a small business loan. You might have a physician assistant who is just out of school, but is planning to get married and they want to prepare for the wedding first, right? All of those kinds of things also can come into play. So it's really taking stock of the way that we think about our money, where we want to go with it, and then also what's our priorities as we're deploying our resources. And actually both time and money, we can budget for both.
Correct. And then am I right in hearing you? I actually read a book called Profit First. Not sure if you heard of it. So in that book, in the sense of when we talk about value system, to me, it simply means if I know my value, then I'm going to put percentage of what I earned immediately into those buckets. So when we already bucket out of our money distribution right away, and then I think that book is suggesting twice a month, right? You're already paying off and allocating your money. And then you don't feel like all I'm doing is swiping credit card, buying things, and then you don't know where everything goes because you have to dedicate a bucket of saving, checking account for all the purposes that you already have for yourself. So those are the safety blankets, whether it's, I gave myself 10% on fun stuff, 10% on my personal growth. right? And then if you want to free off your debt and concentrate on that 40% of toward you're paying off your loans. So whatever that
Mhm.
value system is, then we assign a number. Is that right?
Right, it is. Yeah, and Profit First is generally speaking for small business owners, and it's a great read, great system, nice and flexible for various kinds of industries. And we can take those same principles and apply them to a personal budget as well. So we can say, here's my income and here's my expenses. But the nice thing about Profit First is it says, okay, I'm going to put a restraint on my expenses or the kinds of expenses that I'm going to incur. So you want to have some money for fun, right? We all need kind of an outlet, a release from the day-to-day stress of life. And so that's really, really important for a lot of people, and very understandably and very appropriately so. And as we go through and we look at, okay, what are these other areas of life too? We can assign, say, percentages or, build a system around how am I going to spend my money? What is the best way I can deploy and most effective way that I can deploy my money so that I can take steps towards my goals while still living in the present? That, you have to kind of balance both. But what Profit First does is it says, well, we have to think intentionally before we actually get the money what it's going to do, whether it's a hospital that's paying us salary or it's our own private practice that's paying us, whatever it might be. Before we actually receive either the revenue or the income, what are we going to do with it, right? All we're doing in a budget is saying, okay, money, this is what you're going to do for me, rather than at the end of the month wondering where our money went. One of the things I like to say is you got to plan for your money or your money's going to plan for you. And we'd all rather be in the driver's seat, right, than in the passenger seat along for the ride and wondering where we're going, right? We want to be in control of it. We want to be the one that's driving the ship instead of, wondering where it is that we're going or where our money's going.
Exactly. It's about being proactive in
Mm-hmm.
life, in everything that you do. And I think that's one reason I ask our speakers to take that quick whole life assessment where I cut down to 10 questions from my 100 questions deep dive with my private practice owner clients, just to really encourage us to think about how are we truly creating harmony in life. So Dan, when you saw your life wheel, what are some of the thoughts that pop into your head?
Yeah. I thought many of those questions were very interesting and a good way to kind of divide our lives up into various kind of components, if you will. I'm very strong in my mission, right? I know where it is that I want to go, and I'll do what's necessary to get there. Obviously, legally, ethically, morally, all of those kinds of things, right? But it was very helpful just to kind of spend the time and think through that and make sure that, yeah, that the little steps that I'm taking today, say even, being here with you today, right? It's a wonderful conversation. It's a small step on the way, right? As you do these kinds of conversations as well. This is part of fulfilling your mission too, of informing people. And that's what I'm trying to do, help people. Even if I never meet them, I'd like to be able to help them. So that's part of my mission. I feel that, very strongly. And then also, I guess I'll just pick another one. Personal character is extremely important to me. My own personal integrity, that I'll be true to my word, that if I say something, I mean it and somebody can hold me to it. And in my industry and in my ministry life as well, that's is vitally important. I can't overstate how important it is that, somebody in my position be true to their word and true to, from a faith point of view, true to what God has called me to do, right? I have to be true to that before all else, right? And so going through an assessment like that was really helpful, kind of put numbers to what I was already thinking and feeling.
Yeah, and then it helps us to really see that alignment on what my values and what I want to focus in life is truly where I am doing. And
Mm-hmm.
that can help us to shift everything over or
Mm-hmm.
confirm that you're already doing the right thing for
Right.
yourself, which is amazing. I know definitely a lot of people are going to want to talk to you more about it, for you to look at their system, whether it's from a personal or professional standpoint. How can people reach out to you, and what other resources you would like to provide for them?
Sure. So I believe money and finances should begin with a conversation. So, I offer a free consultation to, anyone who would like to sign up. It's about 15 to 20 minutes just so they can get to know me a little bit and I can get to know them. I don't work with everybody. I do have other coaches I can refer people to as well, but I like to start with a personal relationship rather than, just a form or video or something like that. I certainly use them, but only after a personal conversation typically. So I like to start there, and people can go to my website. It's just moneyworkscoaching.com, and they can sign up for a free consultation there. And then we can, do a Zoom or phone call or whatever works best. And I really enjoy that. That's, even if, somebody doesn't engage with me as a client, at least I know that I've been able to help them in some way. And that might just be pointing them in the right direction, right? Might be to a financial advisor or to me as a coach or to another coach or something like that. And I guess I should address that as well. I'm not a financial advisor. So, I don't sell any financial products or insurance, investments, anything like that. My goal is to help people with the mindset, the mechanics, and accountability surrounding their personal and their business finances. So I will refer to financial advisors, and they actually refer to me as well. So we work together. We don't really compete with one another, because the situation that I look to help is typically not the one that a financial advisor would look.
Exactly. We all complement each other. Thank you so much. And I appreciate everyone for listening. We will love it for you to leave a review, a comment below, whether you're watching this live or listening on our podcast, and leave a review on iTunes so we can continue to provide you the best content. And any questions you have for me, for Dan, reach out to us. You know where to find us. And I hope to see you guys for the next one. Bye, guys. Are you an established owner or executive who has a thriving and successful healthcare practice? We want to hear your story live on the show. Become one of our guest speakers so you can inspire other practitioners like us, arrive as an authority in your field, and connect with thousands of like-minded healthcare leaders who need to hear what you have to say. Apply to be a featured guest speaker on an episode on The Provider's Edge by visiting SabrinaRunbeck.com/interviews.